Hey guys, Matthew here. So welcome to the comeback of my BTB series. We're actually going to be starting to take a focus on crafting here. This is going to be episode number 10, and we are going to be talking about crafting physical damage weapons. I'll be showing you guys in-game a little bit what that looks like. Um, Before anything else, I want to get into the quick technicalities of basically how this works and the TLDR of this video is going to be extremely simple. If you're trying to craft a physical damage focused weapon, just simply use jagged fossils. Do not use anything else, just use jagged fossils. Don't try to do mod blocking, don't do anything else than simply jagged fossils and um, uh, one socket resonators and just spam to your heart's content. Now, if you're interested in knowing why, and also knowing why you shouldn't be doing, blocking and so on, you can watch the rest of this video where I get into the technicalities and the actual numbers behind it. So first and foremost, you need to know that mod generation in Path of Exile is essentially a pool. Every single mod has a weight in that pool, and then it is picked at random in the pool. So first thing you need to know, second thing I guess at this point, the prefixes weight on item level 83. Oh, I guess that's something pretty important that I should talk about. When you're crafting physical damage-based weapons, at least when it comes to foils and claws, there is no reason to use anything else that is over item level 84, or sorry, 83. The reason being the highest mods that are important, such as, hybrid physical damage, percentage physical damage, and flat physical damage are all at item level 83 and below. And then in terms of suffixes, attack speed is 77, crit chance and crit multiplier are 73. So by using an item level 83 foil, you are going to block out things such as tier 1 resistances mods, or say tier 1 elemental damage with attack skills, stuff like that. So you are going to block some mods, even if it's not that many, by simply lowering the level of the foil to 83 instead of 84 or above. So I really recommend to use item level 83, and that is the same thing for claws. If you're going for a physical damage claw, as you can see, 83 for Fizz, 83, 77. You don't want any of this, you don't want that. You don't want the resistance rolls. So go ahead and use item level 83. Next thing you need to know, the prefixes weight total is basically 71,840 on an item level 83 foil. The suffixes weight 85,650. So the weight is essentially the number of the whole pool. If you consider basically that there is a mod pool for the prefixes and the suffixes, well, the mod pool, the weight for the prefixes goes up to 71,840 when you add them up together, and the suffixes is 85,000. The relevant prefixes in that pool of 71,840 is 3,500. In terms of suffixes, it's 12,000. So as you can see, it's quite a bit easier to roll a good suffix on a foil. So what I mean by relevant is essentially anything that you would consider you could keep, or that is essentially the equivalent of a crafted mod or better. So as you can see, the odds of getting something good in terms of prefixes when it comes to foils or physical damage weapon crafting is very, very slim. The odds are 4.8%, well, 4.9%, let's just call it, of hitting an actual good prefix, while 14% to hit a good suffix. Now, if you start using fossils, jagged fossils here, in this example, the weight of the prefixes goes up to 226,940, while the suffixes goes up to 116,400. The relevant prefixes go up to amount up to 31,500, while the suffixes stay 12,000. The odds of hitting a relevant prefix with fossil then becomes 13.9% instead of the initial 4.8%. So that's the first thing you need to know. Essentially, as you can see, already by using the jagged fossils, you're increasing the odds of hitting a good prefix by, 3 times, almost 3 times. Even if the pool itself becomes a lot bigger, that's because all your physical based mods are being basically added. It's their weight times 10, so that's why that happens. Alright, so I also wanted to include alt spamming, so the odds of hitting a relevant prefix, this includes T1 and T2 hybrid fizz and fizz percent, and T1 flat fizz is basically 0.487%. All of the previous mods are basically, well, all of this is assuming that every single roll is going to include a single prefix. That is not how Path of Exile mod generation works, though, because the odds of getting a 4-stat rare once you're using a fossil or a chaos or an essence or whatever it is 65%. A 5-stat rare is 25%, and a 6 mod rare is 10%. And I don't know if there's any like rock hard science behind that, but the tests that the vast majority of the people in the community have made show that these numbers are actually relevant. So as for alt spamming, it's about a 50-50 between rolling a single affix or a double affix item. So half of the time you'll need to augment the item. Basically, every other alteration you need to use an augment to get a prefix on a foil, for example. Well, actually, that's not exactly true. It'd be every 3, well, every 4, because every 2 times you need to roll. You need to use an augment to get your second mod, but basically half of that is going to be prefixes and the other half suffixes. So 1 in 4 times you should need to use an augment if you're rolling alterations for purely prefixes. Now we need to consider that mods are generated via the pool, like I was talking about, which include the prefixes and the suffixes together, and they are not treated equally. So you don't have a 50% chance to roll a prefix and a 60% or 50% chance to roll a suffix. It's actually it actually goes by the amount in the amount of weight in the pool. So I went ahead and did the math for you guys. The odds of rolling a prefix when not using a fossil is 45.6%, while the odds of rolling a prefix when using fossils is 66%. So there is a fairly big difference between when you do use fossils and not when it comes to rolling prefixes. And we're talking about physical damage based weapons, so we are honestly only going for prefixes. Suffixes are very easy to take care of. You simply need to mod them out. Multi-mod, attack speed quality, crit chance quality, or just pure attack speed and crit chance quality, or whatever you want. Critical strike multiplier really is up to you, but suffixes are very easy to take care of, so we're really focusing on prefixes. So, as I said earlier, there's a 65% chance to roll a 4-stat, 25% chance to roll a 5-stat, and 10% chance to roll a 6-stat. So, what does that mean? When you're rolling a 4-stat rare without fossils, you have on average, you're going to hit 1.825 prefixes and 2.175 suffixes, 2.28 versus 2.72, 2.7 prefixes versus almost 3.3 suffixes. So as you can see, this is essentially how many prefixes versus how many suffixes you're going to get on average when you're rolling a 4-stat, which basically comes down to taking, the odds of getting it times the number of stats, and that's it. Now when it comes to 4 stats, when you are using fossils, 2.6 of your 4 rolls on average are going to be prefixes, only 1.4 suffixes, 5 stats, 3.3, 1.7, and 6 stats, 3 almost 4 and 2. So what does this mean? This means that when you are rolling with fossils, not only are your odds of getting better prefixes, like much higher, the odds of getting a relevant prefix is much higher, but the odds of actually rolling a prefix period is also much higher. So the odds of hitting a relevant prefix, like I said, without the fossils, 4.8 versus 13.88, which is what I just mentioned. We are talking about much, much higher odds of actually hitting a relevant stat that you care about in terms of prefixes. And not only that, you are getting way more prefixes on your item. If you look at, let's say, 6-stat rare, well, actually, let's not look at that because that's only a 10% chance of happening. But even if you take like a 4-stat or a 5-stat, which are the vast majority of the time what you're going to be looking at. You're looking at most of the time here almost a 50-50, 45% chance, but here when you increase the odds to 66%, you're looking at almost 3 prefixes compared to 2. So the additional prefix over time, is a very big difference when you're going for prefixes, and the odds of getting prefixes and good ones at that are fairly small. Every additional prefix is essentially one more chance at a really good one. So that's essentially what the conclusion said. My final words: if your goal is to craft a physical focused weapon, you should always use jagged fossils based on the previous numbers. So I'll go ahead and jump in game and show you guys a few things that I've crafted. A few items that you could be looking into crafting with jagged fossil spamming. So don't look at my currency tab, please. I'm really, really, really poor. I really have been taking this league extremely casually. The API has been awful. Anyways, that's my reasons for being poor compared to any other league, really. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. So, some foils. These were all crafted by simply spamming one socket jagged fossils. And one of them is modded out. The other two are not modded out yet because I'm level 33, so I haven't gotten around to getting the mods. I need to ask people to help me out with those. Anyways, not a big deal. So as you can see here, for example, we have flaring, with some decent attack speed. The multiplier, the attack speed and the multiplier are not affected by the jagged fossils. So here we simply just rolled flaring with some good attack speed, slapped on crafted physical damage. This foil ends up being, well, I can't exactly see the DPS, but I think it's around 410 or something like that. Then we have this one. See, once again, flaring. Also rolled the celebration on this foil. I put it up at 8 exalts. It needs to be modded. This needs basically just like this one, flat physical damage, and we're going to be good to go to sell this one. Or something like this, for example. A little bit lesser on the flat physical. We have razor sharp. But we have Bloodthirsty, which is the equivalent of Crafted Mod. Crafted Mod goes up to 129, as you can see here. Bloodthirsty is a little bit more. But we also have Reavers, which is a hybrid of physical damage and accuracy, which goes on top of the Bloodthirsty, which makes it quite a bit better than Crafted. For your information, Razor Sharp is better than Crafted. The Crafted flat physical damage is the same exact mod as the tier 4 flat physical damage, which is called Annealed. Just in case you ever rolled that, is the equivalent of Crafted mod. So depending on what else you have on that foil, it could be technically good enough to keep if you have enough percent physical and enough attack speed to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, you can roll over. It's not a big deal. Another thing to note, if you are going to craft physical damage-based weapons and you're going purely for physical damage, I would highly recommend that when it comes to crafting the suffixes, you go ahead and put this suffix here, which is attack speed and quality. Instead of putting 20% attack speed for one exalt, I would highly recommend putting it 16 attack speed and 18% quality. In basically every single circumstance ever, you are going to get more out of your foil. So that's one thing I would recommend when crafting and trying to finish an item. So like I said, I would use one socket resonators, jagged fossils, and spam. As I said at the beginning of the video, use an item level 83 base, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the last thing I want to show you guys in this video, which is blocking mods. So blocking mods has been fairly popular for a long time because of fossils, allowing you to block mods, obviously, such as, for example, if we take metallic, it says more lightning modifiers. As you can see here, more lightning. When it gets to +1, it means that it's affected by the fossil, but no physical modifiers, which means, as you can see, all the physical-based modifiers go away. So a lot of people tend to ask me, should I use jagged, and then to get rid of all the elemental stuff, I can use corroded, right? Now I end up with only my physical damage rolls that I actually care about, and I get rid of the corroded. And before, to counter corroded, because you would have a you'd have mods that were linked to the corroded fossil mods, which were poison and bleeding modifiers that would have a weight of like 20,000, which is really, really bad. You would roll them almost every time. To counter that, you would go ahead and use prismatic. Prismatic would give you more elemental, but no poison or no bleeding. So in the end, you would end up blocking the poison and bleeding from the corroded, and the corroded would block the elemental damage from the prismatic, meaning you would only end up using jagged fossils. So, if you look at this, now it looks a lot more interesting, and if you were to count the weight, you would realize that indeed you have a much higher percentage chance of hitting the good prefixes compared to, let's say, if I have all of these up, as these are all very, very high in terms of their weighting. Now, the problem is that if you guys remember what I told you at the beginning of the video, prefixes and suffixes are not treated equally in a sense that everything is put into a pool. So what happens is if you actually end up blocking all the elemental mods by using corroded, and then you don't need to use prismatic anymore. But let's say you do that. If you were to add up all these different weights on a claw or on a foil, it's pretty much the exact same thing. If you were to add up all these weights, you'd end up realizing that because you got rid of so many different prefixes of elemental, you got rid of so many of them that the odds of actually rolling a prefix becomes a hell of a lot smaller than the odds of rolling a suffix. So what happens then is that yes, when you do roll prefixes, the odds of getting physical-based prefixes almost every single time, and therefore you're increasing the odds of actually, getting the mods that you want. The problem is that if you guys remember, the odds of getting a 4-stat rare is 65%, 5-stat rare is 25%, and 6-stat rare is about 10%. If you end up blocking all these different prefixes, you are making the pool, the complete pool of mods, much, much smaller in terms of prefixes, but in terms of suffixes, it's actually going to be a lot bigger. So if you were to add up all these different weights, all of them put together, and then all of these put together, you'd see that the odds of rolling a prefix becomes very, very small compared to the odds of rolling a suffix. And since they're not treated equally, they're in a pool, and like I said, 65%, 25%, 10%, what you'd come to realize is that by blocking all these different elemental rolls, you are actually making it really, really hard to roll multiple prefixes on your rare item. You'd end up rolling the item and getting almost exclusively suffixes every single time. And only like one prefix. It would be very, very hard to actually end up getting 2, let alone 3 prefixes, and the perfect physical based weapon would obviously be dictators with, the perfect hybrid, merciless with the perfect percentage on the physical, and flaring with the perfect flat physical damage. So that is basically the godliest combination of triple T1 when it comes to physical damage rolling. But if you're getting to the point where you're almost exclusively rolling suffixes and barely ever rolling 2, let alone 3 prefixes, it becomes very, very hard to get a combination of those. Also, the price of corroded fossils tends to be like 3, 4, 5 times more expensive than the price of jagged fossils. So you're better off instead spamming more jagged fossils with the current odds that I put in here in this page than you are by trying to block, the elemental modifiers or like the attack speed or stuff like that. So that's essentially all I have for this video. Before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon. I'm not sure why this list is here. That's like the same thing as there. But Jason, Casticus, Drew, Jared, KFish, Jason, Casticus, Andreas, Dio, Mathias, and Rakesh. Thank you guys all so much for the huge support. Also, same goes for Mr. Coffee and Bob. If you guys enjoy these kind of technical videos where I go into actual numbers, let me know, because obviously I know a fair bit about crafting, so I can make videos like this explaining the best ways, in my opinion, to craft, let's say Eddy contagion bows, or like melee-based, astral plates, whatever it is. Just let me know in the comment section. And otherwise, that's going to be Matthew signing out. Until the next one, peace.